During the long, cold dark of winter, Anchorage, Alaska movie theaters offered us relief from the grip of cabin fever. For 2 hours or more, you could enjoy a movie, or two if it was a double feature. In the 1940s, 1950s, and into the early 1960s, you might also see a cartoon, a serial, and/or a newsreel just before your movie. Movies and television were our window on the world outside of Alaska. Austin Eugene Cap Lathrop is considered to be Alaska's first homegrown millionaire. The Lathrop Movie Theater Group began back in 1916 when Cap Lathrop built the Empress Theater located on 4th Avenue near G Street. It was the very first movie theater in Anchorage. At the time, movies were still silent. But in 1917, a 211 Kimball organ was installed. Jim Orcutt was the organist. Happily, I recall going to see movies at the Empress back in the early 1950s. The last movie I remember seeing, at least I think it was at the Empress, was in 1953 when I saw Invaders from Mars. The Empress closed in the 1950s. And by the way, here's a bonus. Some years later, KTVA chief engineer Franklin Butte used parts of the Empress Theater's Kimball organ in Uncle's Pizza restaurant managed by Chuck Martin. It is my understanding that the restaurant closed in the 1970s, but for a time they were using the same Kimball organ that was used in the Empress Theater. Now, while the Empress was a grand theater, the dream of Anchorage's first movie palace started with construction of the 4th Avenue Theater in 1941. But the world had other ideas, and World War II caused completion of the theater to be delayed until 1947. Cap Lathrop really went all out for the 4th Avenue Theater. It was an Art Deco, streamlined modern, and Art Moderne style building. The theater had a combined seating capacity of 1,100, and that included the balcony. And you might not know this, but Cap Lathrop was not convinced that a concession stand was appropriate. Years later, we're all happy that one was added. The 4th Avenue Theater was a wonderful experience for Alaskans, and it means something special to each of us to this day. For those who came to Anchorage sometime after the 1964 Great Alaska Earthquake, some folks don't realize that the Denali Theater wasn't always located in Spenard. Its original location was next to a bar on 4th Avenue. But during the earthquake, the Denali sank clear down to its theater marquee. After that, it was relocated to Spenard. The very first movie I remember seeing at the Denali on 4th Avenue ended up being a big mistake. I was 15 years old at the time when me, my sister Anna, and my brother Tom were walking downtown with our mom, Louise Doherty. As we came closer to the Denali Theater, Mom said, "Hey, do you kids want to see a movie?" Of course, we all got very excited and shouted, "Yes!" Then Mom said, "Okay, Mike, you're the oldest. You get to choose the movie." Well, when we found ourselves in front of the Denali, they had a sandwich board on the sidewalk with a display about the current movie they were showing. I looked it over and said, "This one. Let's see this one." Well, in her wisdom, Mom knew it was a big mistake, and she said, "Are you sure?" Well, we ended up in the Denali Theater where we saw the 1962 low-budget black and white movie, The Brain That Wouldn't Die. The movie was tame by today's standards, but back then it scared me half to death, and I think my brother Tom spent most of the time with his hands over his eyes. Well, when it first opened in 1965, the Fireweed Theater was the largest movie theater in Alaska. Among the many movies we remember seeing at the Fireweed were 2001: A Space Odyssey, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and Herbie the Love Bug. For the Love Bug, they displayed a Volkswagen in the lobby, looking like it was the star of the movie. And it seems to me that KBYR Radio hosted a screening of the movie Woodstock in the Fireweed. Now, as I recall, the first drive-in movie theater in Anchorage was the Billiken out in Muldoon. Going to an evening movie at a drive-in theater in Anchorage had its challenges. In the summer, it was difficult to see the movie on the screen because of the amount of sunlight. In the winter, you could see the screen, but you either had to use the little heater that was hanging from the speaker post, or you had to start your car and turn on your car heater for a while. But Alaskans are a hardy breed. And by the way, the Sundowner Drive-In also hosted rock acts in the 1970s, including Kiss, Rare Earth, and Savoy Brown. Well, there you go, a look at some of our favorite movie theaters in Anchorage, Alaska. This is Mike of Anchorage Memories. Join us again next time and take a look at anchoragememories.com.